Lost Planet 2 picks up where Lost Planet finished. Apparently. I have no freaking idea where Lost Planet finished. I played it years ago. I'd have liked a little help here, some sort of montage, a little bit of overdramatic music, that would have really helped, but instead it just flings its story at you like a monkey at the zoo. What I can pick up, or at least what I can remember, is that the eponymous Lost Planet started off as an unwelcoming and frigid place, now is a damp, warm hole infested with alien life forms. Like your mum. There's 3 factions of humans on the planet EDN3 and 1 faction of aliens. I say aliens, but they were actually there first. They just want everyone to piss off and stop stealing their natural resources. Paint the bastards blue and throw some 3D glasses on us and we'd have a hit film here. The resource in question, of course, is something called thermal energy. It's a very weird choice of name and it makes you wonder if the writers, assuming there were any, had actually heard of thermal energy before. Thermal energy is just heat, and hearing some pseudo-scientific nonsense referred to as that, it's just confusing, distracting, and quite frankly kind of annoying. That being said, if I was being shot at, there's a fairly good chance I would leave a puddle of warmth on the floor as well. The biggest flaw in kind of a long list for Lost Planet 2 is actually a printing error. On the box it says 1 to 4 players. It should say 2 to 4 players. I've seen solid single player games made great by having a really good multiplayer. I've even seen fairly lackluster games like Killzone 2 made excellent with a good multiplayer. But this is the first time I've ever seen multiplayer as a concept actually ruin a single player experience. It's quite a solid effort. The core problem here is the AI bots. For an intelligence, these are not intelligent beings. They're more infant than infantry. The system assigns them realistic names, but as none of them spend half the time calling you gay, it's really not the same. I prefer to call mine Mongo, Downey and Lindsay. Although AI bots can handle the basics of shooting at all the bad men, they're not very good at achieving any of the objectives. Most particularly, they suck at getting the data posts like this one. They also spend an awful lot of time following around like some sort of heavily armed, imprinted ducklings. If you kill yourself making a hole through the enemy line and they're supposed to press forward like any soldier would, they instead come running back to you and you can hear the sobbing as they flee the enemy. There's an unfortunate lack of variety to the gameplay. It's just the same old combat. It's very, very dull. There's levels that hint at some sort of attempt at stealth, but any attempt to do so just ends in you dying cataclysmically. You're generally better off making like an Israeli boarding party and just jumping and shooting. Lost Planet 2 is at its best shooting down the alien hordes, but unfortunately this happens all too rarely. Too much of the game is actually spent shooting at human enemies in a ruined city, and if I wanted to do that, quite frankly I'd pick a better game. Almost universally the gameplay kind of ends up just the same thing. You fighting against an endless series of bland human enemies to get to a logical endpoint before someone yells out, "Oh my god, that's a category G!" Then imbusts some weird spiky looking thing and begins a long boss battle that revolves around you fighting the boss and boredom simultaneously. Seriously, if I wanted this long and drawn out a fight with some hostile monster, I wouldn't have gotten divorced. Failure to defeat the boss, which is probably going to happen because your friends are retards, will take you back to the start of the fight, back to when you were killing all the guys. Despite my criticism, I have to admit some of these big giant battles are actually quite fun, especially this guy who I like to call Gerald. Gerald is huge and fighting him is a lot of fun. You can even get inside him and blow up his bits. I really enjoyed this particular fight. It's a highlight of the game, but it's not really matched by much of the rest of it. Never expected any particular level of realism from some sort of alien shooty type game, but it's a point at which you find yourself just not suspending disbelief anymore. The game's handling of water is particularly bad. I can go with the notion that they don't need to breathe because they've got suits on that make oxygen for them using science and or magic, but the physics are idiotic. You can jump around, you jump a little higher, that's iffy, but it's kind of alright. But the weapons work the same. You can use shotguns underwater. And the worst thing is you can throw grenades under the water. It's really, really idiotic. Underwater is the same as on the land, but it's blue and it's kind of wibbly, and seriously, if you're not going to do it properly, just don't bother doing it at all. Of course, under the sea isn't the only place that stupidity can find itself a little home. This train level marks the nadir for me of Lost Planet 2 and really frustrated me pretty much the whole 3 days I was stuck on the goddamn thing. Don't get me wrong, The principle is sound. You start on one train, another train comes past, loaded with baddies, you shoot the baddies as they go past, then jump on the other train and make your way forward. It's the execution that really fails, and fails quite spectacularly here. Approximately everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong here. The AI is egregiously and quite hilariously bad here. There are these cannons that shoot at you, and they shoot so fast and so accurately you can barely avoid them, especially while trailing ducklings. The physics is absurd, the attention to detail is awful. Check this out. There are quick time events in cutscenes that have no warning whatsoever that they're even coming up, and if you get shot off the train, it's considered suicide. Assuming you don't just quit like I wanted to, but unfortunately had to review the goddamn thing, you will eventually get through it. Unfortunately, things here don't get any better. Up comes the obligatory, "Oh my god, it's a Cat G!" And now some idiot gives you a railgun. And though you're given a railgun, you're not actually given any sort of railgun instruction manual. That would have been helpful. Another thing that would be helpful is a team to operate this particular team-based gun. There's a lot of things that have to be done. The train itself has to be fixed as it gets damaged, the bullets have to be loaded, and someone has to fire. Unfortunately, as well as firing, someone has to turn, and your friends are too incompetent to do that, so you have to get out, turn, get back in, and fire. That is ridiculous. Again, unfortunately, your failure is not rewarded. You have to go back again, back to before all the men, back before the stupid freaking sniper cannons. The game isn't all bad though. A major and actually pretty cool feature of Lost Planet and Lost Planet 2 is the Vital Suit. Vital Suits, or VS, are basically just mechs you can get in and ride around on, and quite frankly, who doesn't like a good mech? Vital Suits use upgraded, heavy versions of the standard weapons, shotguns, machine guns, all that kind of stuff. What's actually quite fun is that you can take the weapons off the Vital Suits and carry them around as infantry, though you do run a bit slower while doing so. Some of the VS have special features, some of them can fly, for example. Turrets are another type of VS that pop up here and there, although in the most bizarre places you only seem to get turrets when there's nothing to shoot with them. So much of what I've complained about has been related to attempting to play this as a single player game, and of course these things are mitigated a fair bit by playing it multiplayer. But not completely, and in fact not really even that much. As a multiplayer it's not great. In order to play a mission co-op, everyone in the team has to have done it before, so if you want to show your friend or friends a level that you really like, you actually can't unless they've played through to it. It's a very strange choice. You can't drop in and out of an existing game, so you have to wait for your friends or random people, whatever, to finish a mission before you can join them. But probably the most frustrating and inexplicable thing is the mission cutscenes still start. Australian gamers Cav and I joined a single player campaign and were joined by someone from Spain called Johan69. I'd also just like to state for the record that if your name ends in 69 and you're not approximately 40, then you're a giant douche. In any case, we accidentally started the game at Mission 1, Episode 1, Act 1, Admit 1, Air Force 1 and had to sit through about 10 minutes of annoying video both of us had seen before we could get it to start. All buttons were locked, there was no concept of skipping, and we couldn't get out of the damn thing in any way. Unfortunately, even when you do get in, all the flaws in the single player game are still there in multiplayer. You still have to stand still to fire your grappling hook, which is really clumsy, and grenades have the same issue. You're still bound about like an idiot under the water, and you still have to repeatedly tap a button to open data posts, which means doing this a lot. You probably also still have at least one AI who needs a permanent bike helmet and an afternoon nap. Unfortunately, everything in Lost Player 2 is based around multiplayer. There's no simple story mode, and there really should be. All you have is you starting a multiplayer server and having no one join, as if you've got no friends, like a sad, sad, lonely man. This is also a customize menu you can access. This is me attempting to customize. You can't actually change anything. I don't know why it's called customize. It should just be, this is your weapons, deal with it. Maybe that just didn't fit on the title. Speaking of what you have, there's machine guns and shotguns and the usual kind of things, but that's about it. Why bother setting things in the future at all if all you're going to do is give us a shotgun, a rocket launcher, a machine gun, and then nothing else? As well as co-op, there's also the standard sort of deathmatch games. These are actually a lot better. With the crappy narrative removed, broken bots unnecessary, not having to watch through cutscenes you've already seen, and not needing to wait 20 to 30 minutes for a mission to finish, deathmatch is surprisingly fun. Well-designed maps, you can see some here, and they're very, very nice, are littered with the kind of heavy weapons that make the game interesting and entertaining. And there's a higher density of these big, heavy, stupid weapons than there is in the campaign. It's quite a lot of fun. In conclusion, Lost Planet 2 is a lot like sex apparently is for football players. It's adequate by yourself, but a lot more fun if you can get a bunch of your mates to join in. If you can get a friend or two to join you, there's some fun to be had in either co-op or deathmatch game of Lost Planet 2. But you can't get your friends to join you, because they're all playing Red Dead Redemption. Why aren't you?